Park City, soon to be the largest resort in the U.S., plus the best resorts in Colorado and Tahoe for only $549. Visit epicpass.com today.
They cleared up this accident out there, but it looks like we have a lot of heavy traffic, a lot of residual slowing. So it's southbound I-15 Parish Lane, and it's stop and go from Lagoon Drive. Then we have a crash in Murray, State Street 59 South, and another one in Murray, eastbound 45th South at 4th West, blocking that left lane. It's coming to you live from the Big O Tire studio.
It's 9:03. It is Tuesday. Some clouds out there today, and maybe some sun hopefully breaking through. A little windy, and that wind is bringing us, it looks like a storm tomorrow, maybe a mixture of rain and snow. 48 for the high tomorrow. It's 48 as you get up right now. We have the author of the book, The Journey of the Heroic Parent, Your Child's Struggle and the Road Home, Brad Reedy in studio. How you doing, Brad?
Great. Thanks for having me.
I want to start off this interview with an analogy. Okay, so I've talked about my wife's dog, or our dog, Mustang, but it's her dog that she brought in the relationship. He's kind of a hellion. And, for the longest time, he's just, he really exhausts you, and he takes to the point where we're at our wit's end. And we had Ty, the dog trainer, come in on Friday. So we called a professional to actually, we've known this guy for years, to come in and be like, he's out of control, we're out of control. And it turns out that, and I knew this, that most of the problem is us.
Right.
So now he's like night and day. I mean, obviously it's going to take a lot of work, consistency. But we were, and I knew this.
Right.
And maybe that's what kept, I'm like, we're going to call, we'll just put him off, Ty the dog trainer. But a lot of it is us. Is that kind of the thing with being a parent? Because I'm not a parent.
Right.
DB and Jess have kids. I mean, I know that has something to do with it, when raising a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a core piece of it. The title, The Journey of the Heroic Parent, is about always looking at yourself, always doing your work. And what I always tell parents is that parenting skills and tools, they're not for changing kids. They're for changing parents. And that change can have an amazing impact on the family. And I hate to use dog analogies because it seems to but it's a good analogy because we do program our children and our family to respond to us. And it is a dance that we do with them, for sure.
So give us a little background, because you have a pretty impressive resume. You have kids yourself, and tell us how you got into this line of work and writing the book.
I started a wilderness therapy program. We have a wilderness therapy program for adolescents and young adults. And what I've come to realize over the years is that the best way that I can have an impact on families is by working with parents. And so I do these broadcasts for parents where I answer questions and I talk about parenting principles. And so after a time, somebody said, write a book. And I thought, I don't know what to say. I don't have anything to say. But what I realized that I know how to do is teach people how to think. So my book is not about telling parents what to do, but teaching them how to think. And it's my belief that people, and I think it's important in this valley, people have the wisdom beneath all of the shoulds and have-tos and shame and guilt and anxiety. So it's my job to kind of help them discover that and then to bring that out in them, but not to tell them what to do or to be another expert giving them a certain protocol to use.
Oh, I love that. And I think that's neat. That's awesome.
Without generalizing, what are some of the, or maybe it is generalizing, but what are some of the same questions or same problems that you have where the parents come to you and say, I've got this, and this with my kid? Or do you see like a pattern? Or, I mean, I'm sure they're all across the board, but what do you see most of?
I think the general question is, what do I do with my child? And that's pretty general, but it might be a child struggling with substance abuse or having difficulty with grades or not living up to their potential. And then my questions start to ask the parent, who are you first? The first question always, and this is where the book starts, and it actually starts with my marriage, is who am I?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Here's a book, Dean.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, I've got one. I've got 4.
Right.
But that's good, because if you don't know who you are, then to pass something down to tell your kid, right?
Absolutely.
You got to know who you.
That answers the rest of the questions.
Yeah.
And then to the extent that you know yourself, then you know your child, and after you know your child, you can assess the relationship you have with their problems. And so the question never really. What I start off with as the first premise is, the question of what do I do is not the question. And we should not answer that question. We should answer the question first about who we are, and then our boundaries, our limits, our goals, our values. Even for myself, when I have a question with my children and I talk to one of my peers, it usually results in a conversation where he asks me questions, and then I end up finding out, okay, this is what I want. These are my values. This is what I'm looking for. And this is what I can do, not from a place of fear and control and anger and frustration, from a place of self-awareness and connection to my child's needs. And we miss that a lot because we're trying to control things. We're trying to prevent pain. We're trying to prevent mistakes. And a lot of times those are the two things that teach us the most. And so when we remove from our children the things that they need to learn, instead of providing a safe container and a listening ear and some safe boundaries, we prevent them from learning the things that we know that we're trying to teach them.
Now, here's something for you. So this is somebody that I know. They have a 16-year-old, and it sounds like the kid's pretty good in school. He's getting a 3.8, but in order to get a car,
What about? I think I know where you're going with this, Frankie. Unrealistic expectations.
Well, let me finish it. And in order to get a car, one of the parents wants him to be 4.0 because they know he has the potential for that.
Oh my gosh!
So 3.8 is pretty good.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Gosh.
So, what do you think that's putting too much pressure on the kid as far as these?
Normally I don't give straight advice questions, but I'd say buy the kid a car at this point.
Okay.
Sounds like a
Did you
pretty
hear
good
that,
kid.
Dad?
Okay.
Hey, talk a little bit. As I flipped through the book, I briefly read where you were talking about shaming and blaming like casting blame in situations.
Right.
And in the house that I grew up in, I had a really heavy-handed father.
Right.
The only problem was you never really knew exactly when that was going to come down. Like what he would get, like, for lack of a better term, what would frustrate him or would, bring down his wrath, so to speak, might not be the same Tuesday as it was on Thursday.
Oh, that's hard.
Right.
And
Because it probably wasn't about what he
wasn't about the child's needs.
So,
bringing home.
Yeah.
So my father being that way, I absolutely won't spank my son.
Right.
I won't. I'm not going to be a hitter. But I just found that really interesting about shaming and blame. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite topics. We imagine that shame and guilt, and I don't separate them a lot. I know some people talk about shame as feeling bad for who you are and guilt is feeling bad for what you do. But the fact of the matter is most people have to learn to feel guilt and do the right thing. But we were taught as children that when we upset our parents, that we were doing the wrong things. And that's not necessarily true, we all know now. Yeah. And even though I know these principles, one of the reasons why we use intimidation or physical intimidation or guilt or shame or look how you're making daddy feel is because it works in the short term. But what that does is that wires a child to not know themselves and to really feel responsible for other people's feelings. And then how is that child going to know when a friend is trying to influence them or a boyfriend is trying to
good call.
Sleep with them and they're saying, but I love you. How are they going to know the difference between what is right and the experience of guilt and shame? So for me, it's about finding another way to parent than the way that we were parented and finding out a way to parent that really looks at the child's needs, because most of us resort to, out of laziness or a sense of urgency or fear or control, we try to scare, intimidate, guilt our children into doing the right thing.
And that can only work for so long.
Right.
I knew a guy
or not. I mean, I know adults that their parents their parents still do that to them.
Right, absolutely.
Absolutely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've got an adult, somebody in their 30s and 40s,
That's
and their
true.
parents it's still the parent-child dynamic. It's not adult to adult.
Yeah.
It's
And
never shifted.
the relationship replicates in church and other authority figures and in coupleship. So it happens over and over again because the brain wiring happens early, and it doesn't have the content to it, meaning that it's just a core piece of our brain functioning. So every relationship that we engage in, we replicate that dynamic, and we don't get clear.
Well, it's a great book. I mean, just from what we've read, just kind of skimming through it. So you're getting ready to do a big old TV and radio tour?
We're going to do a little bit of that, yeah. First Utah, and then go out to New York.
Sweet.
Yeah.
What do you got set up for New York?
Well,
there?
they're looking at a couple of things. We're looking at the Today Show, and we're looking at Good Morning America.
That's great.
Very cool.
You got to call out Matt Lauer. I bet
I'm gonna give
not
him-
he's not a good parent.
Yeah, it sounds like his
guarantee-
wife does
You can tell by
everything.
looking.
You can tell by looking. You can tell by
Absolutely.
looking.
Probably
Hey,
some substance abuse.
I'll
in
just
there,
stare him
too.
down.
Yeah.
When people find out what you do, do they actually, and they have kids, do they get advice from you? Do they always ask for free advice?
You know, it's strange. You get two things. You either you get somebody telling their story and asking for advice, but the strangest thing is I get lots of parenting advice when I tell people what I do.
Really?
They start telling me all of their wisdom. So on flights now,
Oh, no.
I lie about what I do because I'm either going to get advice or a session from somebody.
That's great. You're like, I'm a welder. That's what I do.
I'm a
Okay?
garbage truck guy.
Hopefully they don't know about welding. Then I have to make up more.
That's funny. The Journey of the Heroic Parent. That's the book, Your Child's Struggle and the Road Home. So Brad M. Reedy, Ph.D. That's who the author is. So the book available everywhere?
It is available on Amazon. It releases on the 21st, so
Okay.
pre-order yours now, and you'll get it on right after the 21st, and then it'll be everywhere where books are sold.
It was a pleasure having you in,
Yeah,
man.
thanks
a lot.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
9:13. We're getting close to Hollywood Sleaze coming up in about 7 minutes here at ZHT.
Don't you dare